Most of these projects touch on different diseases, from stroke to infectious diseases, diabetes, and most of them are community-based or hospital-based, some urban communities and some rural, so the target populations are very diverse. There's also a lot of sample collection and biobanking of these samples as well. And just to highlight some of the complexities, that genomic research, especially in the African context, is not only about the individual. Once you understand someone's genome or genetics, you also understand the entire family. There's also a growing but limited understanding of genomics and just biobanking, cultural underlying challenges that go with that. And it's a very collaborative nature. You can't do genomics research on your own. You need to get field workers in the field. So there's lots of different partners with sometimes different and competing agendas. And also, I think some of the samples that are being collected are not only being collected for that research primary use, but also for future studies, and that's why the biobanking comes in, the biorepositories. And there was also a limited number of ethical frameworks and guidelines for biobanking in Africa in general, especially when H3Africa started. So the ethics working group and the community engagement working group, which we are part of, set out an agenda of creating guidelines and training ethics committees across the consortium. Catherine will be able to give a better overview of that, so if anyone wants to ask questions. There are also some projects which are specifically funded to just understand the ethics around genomic research. And for the projects that exist within H3Africa, they're all aimed at different engagement, or the purposes of the engagement processes are different. And some of them are just aimed at providing or exchanging information, some of them creating awareness, promote health literacy. I think most of these have been discussed in the morning, but I just want to highlight that most of the projects that we're working with have really had their community engagement aspects as an afterthought. So most of these community engagement activities are actually targeting participants within the research studies and the families and some of the communities if it's rural communities. And some of the target communities have also been highlighted there, which are diverse across the different projects, researchers, hospital staff who didn't know much about genomic research, community advisory boards. There are a couple of projects that have been using community advisory boards depending on the community that they work with, and also research committee, ethics committees, especially with the work that the ethics working group has been doing, and schools. And there are also some projects who are targeting policymakers, which Abraham will also touch later on in his presentation. And the community engagement approaches that have been used in H3Africa include community meetings, radio, television, comic books, patient advocacy groups. We've got theater drama, pamphlets, the mobile app, which I'll speak about later, and social media, and also videos on biobanking. So there have been lots of challenges. It's really about who to define as the target community for these community engagement, and who to include as well, beyond the individual sample donors. The implications of these samples that have been donated goes beyond the individual, and identifying the best methods for each target population, and also meeting community expectations. When researchers come into a community, people have got their expectations, and researchers have, just to strike that balance, and the costs and dedicated budget. And as we mentioned later, most of the community engagement projects that are happening within H3Africa were afterthoughts, so they were not really budgeted for, and in most cases, they lack a dedicated staff member to actually run them. And so these are some of the challenges. And just summary of thoughts is that community engagement is complex, and it's very difficult to navigate the different communities, each with their different interests. And there's also an evolving understanding of the role of community engagement in genomics. And I think now, for the next round of H3Africa, there's been a a greater effort in making sure that community engagement is an integral part of the research studies, so that we don't replicate the mistakes that was done in the first 5 years of the grant. And the community engagement working group is also anticipating and trying to address some of the challenges before they actually happen based on the experiences that we've had. And evaluation, I think in the morning that has been brought up quite a bit. How effective are community engagement activities? Are we really making an impact? Is this going to change whatever we are, targeting? So I'll just end off with one of Paulina's really favorite saying is that if you want to go fast, you go alone. And if you want to go far, you go as a group. And I think as a community engagement working group, we've gone far from having nothing at all and no community engagement activities within the projects. We've actually seen that develop throughout the growth of H3Africa. Thank you.